I'm going to be testing the $30 Beauty Bay Brights palette versus the $60 BPerfect Carnival Interstellar palette to see which one truly is the best or if they perform just as well as each other. Let me know in the comments down below if you can tell which side I used the Beauty Bay palette on and which side I used the BPerfect palette on. So first up, for the affordable option, we have the Beauty Bay Brights 42 color eyeshadow palette. This is what the palette looks like inside. You have a lovely selection of matte and shimmer shades. And on the high end side, we have got the BPerfect Cosmetics Carnival Interstellar palette, which retails for $60. This is what the palette looks like. Again, you have a gorgeous array of its shimmer and matte shades that encompass the entire rainbow. So let's jump into how I created this look so you guys can see which palette truly is the best. So I've gone ahead and prepped my base with the P. Louise base in the shade Rumor 1. On my left side here, I'm going to go in with the BPerfect Cosmetics Carnival Interstellar palette. And on this eye here, I'm going to go in with the Beauty Bay Brights 42 shade eyeshadow palette. On a Sigma E42 shade, I'm going to take the shade Spacewalk from the Interstellar palette. And I'm going to start blending that on the outer edge and through my crease. On a Morphe M506 brush, I'm going to go in with the shade Drama Queen from the Beauty Bay palette. And I'm also going to run that colour in the crease. I am using a different brush, so this side looks a bit messier, but so far these purples are really similar in tone. On a Morphe JH40 brush, I'm going to take the shade Conspiracy, and I'm going to blend that halfway into my crease and halfway over top of that purple. On a Morphe M506 brush, I'm going to take the shade Dragon Fruit, and I'm going to blend that into that crease and outer edge. Next, I'm going to take a Sigma E33 in the shade Atom, and I'm going to blend some of that purple shade out. On a Sigma E27, I'm going to take some of the shade Modern Way, and I'm just going to use that to blend the outer edge out as well. One thing that I've noticed so far is the main difference between the two palettes is that with the Beauty Bay palette, you really have to pack the pigment on your brush. I find that they're a lot more subtle. They're definitely blendable, but the BPerfect one, you just get pigment instantly. So there is a little bit more work involved in the Beauty Bay one, but it still performs. On a Sigma E36, I'm going to take the shade Light Year, and I'm going to use that to blend the outer edge out. On a Morphe M562, I'm going to take a mixture of the shades White Lies and Sugar Plum, and those shades are going to be used to blend the outer edge. I definitely have to say the BPerfect side is showing a lot more intense pigment. You can get a lot deeper with the dark shades, whereas the Beauty Bay side, you can still get some really nice pigmentation, but it's definitely not as deep and intense as the BPerfect side. On a Morphe JH38, I'm going to take the shade From Mars, and I'm going to place that in my inner corner and blend it into the pink. On a Morphe E36, I'm going to go in with the shade Heatwave. I'm going to also blend this in the inner corner and into the pink. On a Morphe M433 brush, I'm going to take the shade Comet, and I'm just going to use a touch of that in between the purple and orange just to help blend it together. On a Sigma E28, I'm going to take the shade Make Them Wink, and I'm going to use that between the purple and the orange on the Beauty Bay side. On a Morphe JH33 brush, I'm going to take the shade Classified, and I'm going to use that right in the inner corner. On a JH31 brush, I'm going to take the shades Tangerine Dream and White Lies, and I'm going to place that in my inner corner. On a Morphe JH35 brush, I'm going to take some of the shade Fiction, and I'm just going to take that shade right on the outer edge just to make it all seamless. And on a Morphe JH32, I'm just going to go in with the shade White Lies, and I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to clear the excess eyeshadow off the lid with some makeup remover and a cotton pad. I'm just going to pop some more of my base product on the lid, and I'm going to blend that out with my sponge just so that we've got a new nice base to pop our next lot of shades on top of. Right, so I want to put some shimmer shades on the lid now, and this is where the Beauty Bay palette actually has the edge because there are not a lot of shimmer shades in the Interstellar palette, and a couple of them are glitter shades, which I really don't like. But we're just going to see what we can do. On my finger, I'm going to pick up the shade Orbit, and I'm just going to place that all over my lid. I can already tell this is going to be a nightmare to take off. It is very pretty though. This is exactly why I hate glitter shades. Number one, the fallout, and two, I feel like they never blend nicely. So I'm going to try and fix this. Alright, I'm covered in glitter. I've accepted defeat. We're going to move on to the Beauty Bay side now. On my finger, I'm going to pick up some of the shade Sapphire. I'm just going to take that sapphire shade on the outer edge. Next, I'm going to pick up the shade Splash, and then I'm going to go in with that splash shade next to it. And finally, I'm going to pick up the shade Lagoon. And then I'm going to place the shade Lagoon on the rest of the lid. Now these eye looks are looking very different. I'm going to try and add a few more shades to the side to kind of match the vibe. There's no way I'm getting this glitter off though. On a Sigma E37 brush, I'm going to pick up a little bit of the shade Velocity, and I'm going to blend that right on the outer edge. On that same brush, I'm going to go in with a bit of the shade Martian, and I'm going to blend that on the outer edge. I'm also going to bring it a little bit onto the center of the lid, just to give more of a green vibe like we've got on this side. And finally, on that same brush again, I'm going to go in with a little bit of the shade Reptilian. I'm just going to use a touch of that in the inner corner. So under the lower lash line, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I'm just going to use these same shades underneath. On that JH40 brush, I'm going to take the shade Conspiracy, and I'm going to blend that halfway under my lower lash line. On the Morphe M506 brush, I'm going to take the shade Dragon Fruit, and I'm going to blend that halfway under the lower lash line on the Beauty Bay side. On that Morphe M433 brush, I'm going to take some of the shade Comet, and I'm going to use that to blend that pink out. And on that Sigma E28 brush, I'm going to take some of the shade Make Them Wink, and I'm going to blend the pink out from the Beauty Bay side. On that Sigma E33 brush, I'm going to take some of the shade Atom, and I'm going to blend that in the outer edge of my lower lash line. On that Sigma E27 brush, I'm going to take some of the shade Modern Way, and I'm going to place that on the outer edge of the Beauty Bay side. On that Morphe JH38 brush, I'm going to take the shade From Mars, and I'm going to blend that in the inner corner. On a Morphe E36 brush, I'm going to take the shade Heatwave, and I'm going to blend that in my inner corner on the Beauty Bay side. On a Morphe JH33 brush, I'm going to take the shade Classified, and I'm going to use that to blend that dark orange shade out. On a JH31, I'm going to take a mixture of Tangerine Dream and White Lies, and I'm going to use that in the inner corner to diffuse that orange. On a Morphe M321 brush, I'm going to take the shade Mercury, and I'm going to use that in the inner corner to brighten it up. And on another Morphe M321 brush, I'm going to pick up the shade Rise and Shine, and I'm going to use it to brighten the inner corner on the Beauty Bay side. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop some mascara and lashes on, and then I'll show you guys the final look with side-by-side comparisons. So this is the eyes all finished. I have to say they look pretty similar. So this side is the BPerfect side, and this side is the Beauty Bay side. I have to say, I think both of these palettes performed pretty well in this comparison video. I wanted to create an eyeshadow look that would get me to test a bunch of colors, but also picked a look that had similar colors so that I could really compare it fairly. So let's talk about some pros of the BPerfect palette. So the first thing for me is that the pigment is just so good. As soon as you pop those eyeshadows down, they are just bold and bright on the lid. Another pro I would say is the availability of shades. There are so many shades in the BPerfect palette, you really can just create a rainbow look. And another pro is blendability. All of those eyeshadows blend seamlessly. Ignore the fact that I had some trouble with the glitter, but I think it would be used a lot better as a topper as opposed to a direct eyeshadow. However, it has not creased, so I will give it that. So cons of the Carnival palette. The first thing I'm going to say is price. It's not necessarily the most affordable eyeshadow palette. However, I think it is a really great buy when it does go on sale. Another con is that there's actually not a lot of shimmer shades that you can use to create a cohesive look. There's a couple glitter shades, but most of the shimmer shades are dark, whereas with the Beauty Bay palette, I found like there was a much bigger selection of shimmer shades. And another con is that these eyeshadows do stain, especially the pinks and the purples. I have used this palette multiple times, and because they are so pigmented, they will unfortunately stain your eyelid for a couple hours. Another thing too, because of the pigment, there is a lot of fallout, so if you don't like fallout, you need to be mindful when using this palette. So let's talk about some pros of the Beauty Bay palette. The first one and the most obvious one is price. This is $30 US, so to get 42 shades for $30 US is pretty good. Another pro, I want to say the shade selection. There is literally every single color of the rainbow plus some in here, and I really do like that. I also love how there is a matte white eyeshadow. I feel like that just creates so much more versatility with this palette. And another pro of this palette is that it is incredibly beginner friendly. The shades are buildable, so you're not going to end up putting too much and having a hard time blending it. Now for the cons. The first thing I noticed compared to the BPerfect palette is that you really have to build the product up on your brush to be able to get it quite pigmented. So I found myself going back and forth quite a lot to really intensify these shades. Another con with this palette is that I found a lot of the shades were really similar or blended into really similar tones, so it was kind of hard to get dimension. This bottom row specifically is super similar, and I did find when blending the purples, they kind of ended up looking the same. A similar con to the BPerfect palette is the pinks and purples on this will stain as well. I have used them before. So again, if you're looking for an eyeshadow palette that doesn't stain, it's gonna be neither of these. So all in all, I think you really can't go wrong with either of these palettes. It really just depends on your budget. I've seen this palette listed on Beauty Bay's website for as low as £10, so it could be a great steal if you're looking to add a large rainbow palette to your collection. And of course, the BPerfect Carnival palettes do go on sale. Unfortunately, not as low as £10, but this could be a great present to add to your wish list. Personally, I do prefer the BPerfect side more because I feel like I was able to get more color payoff and dimension between the shades, but I still think the Beauty Bay side did really well. I think the shimmer shades on the Beauty Bay side look a lot better because there were more variety in the palette. However, the glitter shade on the BPerfect side I think would be the perfect eyeshadow topper. So let me know, do you prefer the $60 BPerfect palette or the $30 Beauty Bay Brights palette? Comment down below which side you prefer. I'd be interested to see what you guys like best. This was such a fun video to film. I have so many colourful eyeshadows and I've actually never put them to the test against each other. So if you want more videos like this, leave me a comment down below. Well, that is it guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. It helps push my video out to new potential viewers. And if you're not yet already subscribed and you want to see more content from me, subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you never miss a video. If you want to see any other looks that I don't create here, check out my Instagram at MakeupWithAlix. All my social medias are linked down below. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!